It's Jessica Honegger, founder of the socially conscious fashion brand Noonday Collection, and this is the Going Scared podcast, where we cover all things impact, entrepreneurship, and courage. Today on the show is trailblazing entrepreneur Adelle Archer. Adelle is the co-founder of Eterneva, a company that turns ashes of your pets or your loved ones into diamonds. She was recently featured on the cover of Inc. in their 30 Under 30 issue. And as you will hear, she is truly disrupting this grieving space and creating an entirely new category that is really all about celebrating life. 27-year-old Adelle, yep, she is only 27. Her nickname growing up was Ambitious Adelle, and everyone knew her to dream larger than most can imagine. After graduating valedictorian of her MBA class, she made a name for herself in the tech industry as one of the best go-to market leaders in Austin, but always knew that entrepreneurship was her path. She and I met through an organization that we are a part of, and we meet together monthly called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. And her starter story is so moving that when I heard it, I knew she was the perfect guest for this series. We are currently right in the middle of a series called our Starter Series, where we are digging into what it looks like to take a dream and make it happen. Maybe it's a goal in your life, maybe it's a business, whatever it is, Adelle's story is going to get you going. Okay, I'd love for you to start off and just tell us what is Eterneva.
Sure. So I might blow your mind a little bit. We literally grow real diamonds from the carbon in somebody's ashes. And so when you lose somebody that's really, really special to you, and, I think especially if they're one of your closest relationships in your life, you're looking for something, really special to do for them. And if they're cremated, there's not a lot of options. There's urns and there's, kind of vials or things that, more simple stuff. But what we do is we literally grow a real diamond from the carbon extracted from their ashes. So you can carry them with you always in a really beautiful way.
So this is funny, and I don't know if you know this. So Adelle and I are actually in a business group together. It's called EO, and that's how we got to know each other. But then the month that Dan asked us to be in it, you were like on the cover of Inc. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I will do this. There's like legit people in the group.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there you go. A little Inc. A little push me over the edge. But I'm wondering, I worked in the diamond industry for just a small little stint. I worked
That's crazy.
There's a store here in Austin called the Menagerie. And it's a very, very, it's like a 25-year-old boutique where a lot of people go, traditionally to get the diamond ring. So that's where I learned a little bit about diamonds and grades and all of this stuff. I had no idea though that diamonds could be made. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit, and then since then, of course, I watched Blood Diamond, and I didn't know much at all about like the whole how that works and the ethics around diamond mining. So I wanted to talk a little bit. Can you tell us about the diamond industry? Because I know that it's fascinating, right? It's fairly controlled. I don't know. Tell us, I'm assuming you know all about it.
Well, what's funny is that like when we first started this business, we were totally getting into the diamond industry. Like we were going to be a diamond company. We just saw a great opportunity with the lab grown diamond, industry, and it's super up and coming. And there's a lot of ethical reasons, like you said, that people would decide to choose a lab grown over a mined diamond for their engagement ring. But then, it was just the craziest thing where, just life serves you something super unexpected and opens a door that you would never anticipate. And I lost a really close friend of mine as we were starting this business. She was my business mentor. And she was like one of my best friends. And so, that's when I had her ashes, and I went through that whole exercise of like, I can't find anything that felt good enough for somebody who had invested so much in me personally. And so it was just literally over dinner with one of the diamond scientists where they were like, yeah, you can literally extract carbon from ashes and grow a real diamond from it. And my partner, Garrett, and I just were like totally enamored by the idea. We're like, what? Like, how does this work? This is incredible. Like, this is just so fascinating and such a beautiful way to eternalize somebody. And so that like caused this pivot in our business. And so weirdly, we're really not in the diamond business at all. Like, yes, we are growing diamonds, but day in, day out, we're just having like unbelievably emotional, incredible conversations with people, learning about like basically the best people in the entire world, because you wouldn't do this for like an average person. It's just like these are all remarkable people. And,
Mm.
you know, the focus of our business has just become less of like we never talk about, you know, the clarity, the cut, the color, all that stuff. Like, you know, we send a certificate home at the end to be like, yes, this is a real diamond. It's a beautiful, high quality piece, but all of our obsession and our innovation and just like everything we focus on as a company is about how do we celebrate a remarkable person who lived an incredible life, because we don't want them to be forgotten. So yeah, like there's a lot happening in the diamond space, but you know, we're definitely more in the celebrating a life well lived space at this point.
So I mean, and I can relate to this because for so long, especially the beginning years of Noonday, it was like, what category are you in? Because
Yeah.
it's like, are you in the fashion space? Are you in the
Hmm.
fair trade space? Are you in
Totally.
the direct sales space? And we really do bridge all the spaces, which there's a
Yep.
challenge there, right? Because, it's like when you say iPhone, we think Apple.
Hmm.
When you say, I don't know, water, purified water, I think clean water. I mean, like we have these
Yeah.
brands that automatically come to mind, and that's what kind of creates a strong brand correlation with your product.
Hmm.
And so I think it's interesting the way you just kind of pivoted, because I'm asking you, let's talk about diamonds. And you're like, that's not what my company's about.
Totally.
And then, but so you're saying like, no, we're not going to have the diamond industry conversation because that's not really what I'm doing. So what industry are you in? I mean, is there a whole industry around grief?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. So I guess the official term that people say is like it's the death care space. You know, you're in the funeral industry, and like we don't even self-identify with that either. Like exactly as you're saying, you got one kind of toe in a bunch of areas, but you know, we think that there's a real need to stop looking at like that space at so morosely and so you know just it's so driven by tradition and formality, and it doesn't feel good to people who are really like looking for a way to honor somebody that served them for 50, 60 years of their life, you know, one of their most special connections. So we say that we're in the celebrating a life well lived space.
So you would say you're basically creating a new category, which you're calling the life well lived space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who else would be in that space with you? Like when you think about like your neighbors, who do you want to be there?
Hmm. Really good question. I mean, I think it's a bit of a call to action to more people to come here. I think that this is kind of an overlooked space. A lot of people are really uncomfortable with death. And that's something that, you know, having been there myself and then engaged with so many of our customers, it's like these are incredible people who live these beautiful, rich lives. And like we need to be talking about them, but culturally, we're very uncomfortable around grief and engaging with grief. And I think that's why there hasn't been a lot of innovation in this space. But, you know, there's some cool companies out there that are, you know, doing like end of life celebrations. Like there's some cool entertainment companies and event production companies who put on these like really cool parties. So that's fun. And, you know, people are looking at things like growing a tree from somebody's ashes, or you can send your loved one's ashes into space, which is really cool. But I think what's kind of unique about what we're doing is that, you know, it's something that, unlike something more traditional, like, you know, a casket where it goes into the ground and you're kind of among the dead, if you will. Like this is something that's beautiful, it's vibrant, you're wearing it every single day. And it's kind of among the living. And it's something also that lasts. It's not like a one time thing where you shoot somebody's ashes into space and then they're kind of gone. This is a legacy piece that you pass down to future generations. And so I'd love to see more innovation in the space so that people really feel like they find the perfect thing for their loved one that just really celebrates their life in the way that
Mm.
feels right.
I did an interview with a guy named Ian Crowan, who is a guru around the Enneagram. Have you heard of the Enneagram?
Uh,
So the Enneagram, it's a personality test that's really in vogue right now, and it's fairly complex but extremely accurate. So I'd be curious. Once we get off, I'll have you go explore it. But we ended up talking about grief, which I just spent time
Can you hear
in
me?
the hospital with my dad. He was having a health crisis. And he says to me that grief is the cost of love.
Yeah,
I thought that was
that's
really
amazing.
profound, because what he's saying is you can't love
Hmm.
without grief. And ultimately, if you don't ever grieve, then you've never
Hmm.
loved.
Absolutely.
And do think that grief is, for me, it's a feared emotion, because I think it's that feeling that it will swallow you up and you won't be able to ever come
Hmm.
out of it. I mean, that's when I think of what grief could
Hmm.
do. Uh, I wanted to hear a little bit more, and I know that this is still
Hmm.
really tender for you, about your mentor and your grieving process, because was this kind of one of the first times that you've grieved at that level?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've lost grandparents before, but it is very different losing somebody that had a beautiful, rich, full life, and you miss them, but you're like, that was a life well lived, versus somebody that you lost perhaps too soon. And yeah, I mean, I have so many thoughts and experiences on grief, just having engaged with our customers who have lost like every type of person, from, a child all the way up to a grandparent or a spouse or a best friend or a brother. And for me personally, so Tracy, she was just like, I just think that you're really blessed with a couple people in your life that just like come along and you totally don't foresee them walking into your world, and they walk into your world and like you're like, why do you care so much about me? Like, why is it that you're investing so much in
Mm,
me, just so selflessly? And she was totally that person. Like, it was just like a really fortunate period of my life where I was really struggling with a lot of anxiety at the time. And, I had just graduated college, and, had gotten into my MBA program, gotten into my first job. And I was just, having a really hard time, like just setting these crazy, ridiculous standards for myself. And she just was so incredible. I mean, she like every week would be meeting, and she'd dig in with me, kind of hear what was going on in my world, and then walk away, go research all these tools and strategies, come back the next week, and she's like, okay, here's what we're going to try. And you're like, who does that? Like, that's just so
mm,
remarkable. And
wow.
so, when Tracy was diagnosed, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. And, it was just like she was given a 3-month window to live. And I think it was really difficult for her to get that sentence, because she was so ambitious and so driven and had such a big vision for her life, that
Mm,
she's like, holy shit, I'm sorry. I'm not going to leave my legacy.
that's right.
I'm getting cut short on that. And so one of the most amazing things I think that her aunt did, who was really close with her, was she actually put a Facebook group together, and she found like all of these people from every walk of Tracy's life. Um, and she asked everybody to contribute a story, of an example of how Tracy had touched their life. And so, like, literally by her bedside every night, she was reading Tracy a different story, telling her, like, over and over and over again, like,
Wow.
what an impact she had had on other people. And that was literally one of the last things she said, was like, okay, I've accepted that I've left a legacy. And that was just like one of the most incredible and meaningful, experiences, just to get to witness, and to realize that it's just so important for people to know and to show each other that. And but then to kind of continue on after that, I was just so blown away by how much she invested in me, that I was like, okay, well, what can I do to kind of keep Tracy's legacy alive? And a piece of her being my business mentor is just, her story is now at the core of Eterneva. I talk about her like every time I talk about Eterneva, and it's just really cool, to kind of find proactive ways to keep somebody's
Wow.
story alive. And I think that's what, when you have somebody that special, you're looking for ways to keep them alive. And, they talk about the second death, like preventing the second death is when somebody stops getting talked about. And we don't want to do that.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like your business is you. make it so personal. I mean, you're actually talking with your customers and
Hmm.
listening to their stories. What has that been like for you? Now kind of being this, I mean, like a grief counselor.
Well, we actually, so Garrett and I, yes, like absolutely. My partner Garrett, he and I, when we first started out, we were the only, two that were taking phone calls, and you hear some crazy stuff for sure. But the way that we really think about it is like we're not really the grief counselor. Like we direct them to resources as needed. But what's really special about this is that it's a long process. It takes about 8 months to do, and we learned that, at the end of it, like this is going to be your absolute most cherished possession, wearing something beautiful every day. It's just, it really is very healing and cathartic and kind of a beautiful connection point. It brings up the right emotions. But as we go, we've really created an amazing experience for our customers. So we're like, every month giving them an update, a picture, a video, and just celebrating their loved one. We learn a lot about their loved one. Like we ask them their favorite stories and what they want them to be remembered by. And we like write dedication posts to them on social media. We post their picture in our office. And so it's just kind of this ongoing, celebration of that person and something they get to look forward to every month when they hear from us. And there's something really powerful about that when you've lost the most important connection in your entire life. Like there's nothing good that's happening in your world right then. It's literally the darkest, lowest point in your life. And if you're given an experience where there's something to look forward to every single month, we've learned that we get to
Yeah.
be kind of the beacon of brightness, for people who are
Yeah.
grieving. So we serve their grief in a very different way. We're not really there to like necessarily coach them through the grieving process, but we kind of lighten their load a little bit by giving them a silver lining that, puts some meaning against the pain.
Mm. So I'd love for you to walk me through the journey. If I have a loss, I've decided this is how I want to memorialize my loved one. Tell me the whole step because you could have made it like,
Hmm.
I don't know, a little bit more automated. I mean, you're what you just described is like you give pictures every month and
Hmm.
you memorialize a person, you celebrate. And so tell me a little bit about that journey,
Yeah,
and then, of course, I'm gonna
absolutely.
ask you how you're gonna scale it.
So you reach out to us, and one of the first interactions with us is, we do a consultation. We help you understand how this all works. Most people have, no idea that you can even do something like this. But a big piece of it is really understanding, like just asking them, who is this person? Like they have to be amazing to prompt the phone call, even. So
Because and also because it's fairly expensive. I mean,
of
it's a
course,
yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it's a diamond.
And so, yeah, I mean, you're not going to do this for just great Aunt Sally that kind of added no value to your life. Like this is your person.
Right,
And
right.
so, it ends up just being this really awesome conversation, whether it's over the phone or over text or whatever medium. But we just ask them who they are, because like when you lose somebody, it's really crazy. Like the rest of the world, they only want to know how they died, and then they stop talking. And that's like the one question
Mm.
that's overlooked is somebody saying, well, like what were they like, who are they as a person? And that just lights somebody up. Like they love to tell you about that. So we get to know that. And then if they decide that this is the right thing, like our goal is just to help them think about what feels right, because it may not be a diamond. But a lot of the time they do decide, yes, this is something I really want to do. Then we send them a kit, and in that kit is everything they need to package up the ashes and also pick out a diamond. So different cubic zirconias in the kit, and they can kind of see and feel what different sizes are like. It's really cool packaging with like a personalized video on the inside. So yes, we even like personalize the video and like talk to you from our kit. And then when we return the kit is when we get the ashes, and that's when we start the process. So it's about an 8 month process on average, 8 to 10, super involved, really intricate. We literally work on everybody individually at a time, because just out of respect, out of like, with incredible integrity, like everybody grows even in their own machine at a time. It's one at a time. So quite a bit different than regular lab grown diamonds. and we're first extracting the carbon from somebody's ashes and purifying it. That in and of itself takes almost 2 months to do. And then we're growing like a real diamond using extreme pressure, temperature, and these big, machines that are simulating the Earth's conditions. And then we examine the diamond, make sure we can get exactly the diamond that you ordered out of it. That's high clarity, high color, like just a beautiful diamond. If not, we literally regrow it till it's perfect. And then we grade it, certify it, engrave it with impersonal inscription. We can color it a bunch of different colors so that we can, really, really personalize it to what feels like the color that really resonates. And then we can have it set in a finished piece of jewelry. So then as we go, we provide pictures and videos and updates and like fully document the whole experience and just really make it in kind of an epic celebration and crescendo towards the final delivery day, which we call the homecoming. And we actually have everybody's diamond hand delivered and make it a really special day for them coming home.
Wow. Wow. So as far as, I mean, I know you hedged when you said you're not in the diamond industry, and I completely understand where you're coming from, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's not like what you're looking towards as your competitors. And I get that, but I'm wondering just like from a valuation perspective, I mean, I just didn't even know, like, when did this whole idea come about of, what's it called? It's not called artificial diamonds. What's it called?
Lab grown diamonds. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lab diamonds. Like when
Mm-hmm.
when did this kind of come about? When did they discover this science? And when did consumers actually begin to see this as a viable alternative to a mined diamond?
Yeah. So the technology was invented like back in the 60s, actually. And they grow diamonds for a lot of different reasons. So there's actually a lot of industrial application for oil drilling and cutting tools and lasers and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
they did industrial diamonds for a very long time, and then in the like late 90s, early 2000s is when they started getting the technology good enough to be producing gem grade quality diamonds. Um, and then, like any new technology, there was definitely an adoption curve, where people are like, I don't
It's
know,
like
is it,
screw top
the
wine or something, instead of like the core.
exactly. Exactly. I think blood diamond helped a lot, a lot, a lot. And yeah, I mean, literally the chemistry is exactly the same. Like it is 100% a real diamond, when
So what is a diamond? How do you define a diamond?
it's just made of carbon. I mean, really, it's a hard, carbon based material. Like if you were to bring a lab grown diamond into a jeweler's, like into a jeweler with a mined diamond, not telling them which is which, they would not be able to tell the difference. They need specialized machinery to be able to tell the difference.
And from a valuation standpoint, is it still the same, like E, F, and I don't even remember
Hmm.
what all the thing
Yeah.
is now. And is
Yep.
is the costing the same, or like the certificate, does it have to say that it's a lab diamond, or it can just say it's a diamond?
It does have to say it's a lab diamond, yes, from like the certification standpoint. Yeah.
And does the consumer pay as much for a lab diamond as a mine diamond?
So typically, the lab grown diamonds are less expensive than mine diamonds. We again are kind of in a different like world and category since there's so much more complexity to our process, and we're literally growing a diamond from somebody's carbon. And so every time we do that, like we literally have to have different set points on our machine where we're kind of dialing in the right like pressure and temperature levels based on like working with a different material every single time. And so our diamonds are usually more expensive than regular lab grown diamonds. You'll see them kind of sometimes in line with mine diamonds, just depends.
Because of the actual process.
Yeah, it's really hard actually to grow like especially bigger diamonds, from a carbon from somebody's ashes because you're trying to get it as pure as possible so it successfully grows. But yeah, you have a lot more variability if somebody has just totally distinct elements in their ashes that are still bound to that carbon, and
Wow.
so yeah, it's really
That's what I
incredible.
was gonna ask, is what's sort of like the key point in the process? Like, is it the lab that it's grown in? Is it the scientist that's overseeing it? Like, what is it that makes like this is essential to actually having the outcome that you're desiring?
I would say, I mean, it's probably two things. Like the carbon purification of the ashes is really important. Like somebody's ashes has, tons of different elements in it. And so we're trying to like literally isolate the carbon, like molecules out of their ashes away from everything else until it's like almost 100% pure carbon. So that is a really difficult process. It literally takes 2 months to do. And then when we grow the diamond, that is very difficult as well because we are calibrating the machine differently for every person. Whereas in a regular lab, you're growing them in batches, you're working with, generic scientific carbon, and you get kind of the same predictable result every time because you're working with the same material. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for our scientists on the carbon purification side and our growth side. And the cutting is hard too.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
Wow. So detail oriented and special, really special.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go back to the beginning because so you were already, I missed this part of the story. I thought the whole inception was after Tracy's death. You were like, what do I do with the ashes? But you were already walking into this business of starting a business. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what led you to that?
I mean, I think I was always I'm very, very entrepreneurial. My mom's an entrepreneur. I had my MBA in entrepreneurship. And I went into tech.
That's funny. I didn't even know you could get I love that you can get your MBA now in entrepreneurship because I feel like entrepreneurs are the classic, like, I don't need an MBA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love that. That's what I need to go get.
Well,
actually, I'm going to Harvard with EO. Like I'm going to be, that's going to be like my first sort of like traditional educational stint.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm super excited that I got in.
That's amazing. Hell yeah. Well, you should also check out, so there's a school here in Austin that's literally called the Acton School of Business, ACTON. And they're
Yes, I do know Acton.
So that was where I got my MBA. So it's very much like by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So you wouldn't do any program, I think, as an entrepreneur unless it was like, here's entrepreneurs, like putting you on the street.
Like you're going to actually create your business plan during,
They were hardcore, man. They
totally.
made us go sell dictionaries door to door. They're like, oh, you need to learn how to sell, like co-sell dictionaries. And you're like, what? So yeah, a lot of applied learning.
So amazing. I love that. Oh my gosh. I wish my whole education would have been that. Okay, so you're at Acton, and I mean, gosh, you're surrounded by people with ideas that are ready to execute on their ideas. So what are some other, like, how did you get into, okay, we're going to go into the diamond area? Because there's like a million businesses you could start.
Well, I mean, I think that's what's kind of interesting about entrepreneurship is that, like, yes, you can have a lot of ideas, but it doesn't mean they're good ideas. And so there's actually a lot of patience, I think, that comes with, evaluating opportunities and not jumping until you see the right one. And so at the time I knew this is what I want to do, but I also knew, okay, there's nothing right now that I'm seeing that's that interesting. And, I should go and get these experiences over here that will really serve me as an entrepreneur. I went into kind of the digital marketing, product marketing, launching new products online. And so that was massively helpful experience. But meanwhile, was still evaluating all these opportunities, on the side. And yeah, I mean, I think that that's a good lesson learned is that like patience is everything. And so when we got tipped off on the lab grown diamond industry, it was another Acton student I started working with it on. And then I brought Garrett in, and then he and I just started working on lab grown diamonds. And then we looked at like a ton of different models within that space. And so he and I were just like, should we go up the supply chain, down the supply chain? Should we be consumer facing? Is there more an interesting angle here? And so it was just like one of those kind of preparation meets fate when, we heard about that. Cause then we kind of put it through our model and we're like, oh my gosh, this is a really good business. Like we're really emotionally invested in it. Obviously there's a personal connection here, but this is a really good business. So yeah, it was awesome.
And then tell me a little bit about Garrett, because I think there's so many entrepreneurs who are the solopreneuring it and don't always bring on a co-founder at the beginning. So tell me about that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, Garrett and I, we've been really good friends for a long time. We worked together at Big Commerce and then another tech company called Trendkite. And then I lived with him for a year as a roommate. So we always jived super well. And
by the way, I've not told everyone that you're like 28 or something. You're
27.
27. Okay. Sorry about that. I mean, 27. So, it's pretty amazing what you're able to accomplish already.
Oh,
Okay. So you and Garrett in your
yeah.
very young career life is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was just super complimentary. Like he's incredible with sales and business development. He's very strategic, and then I was more on the marketing side, and so very complementary skill sets. And I think like what we both really appreciate about working together is that we're very growth oriented and we're growth mindset people, and so we're always like, like let's question our assumptions here. Like, how can we get better? And we both love like giving each other feedback and just like learning and always it's in pursuit of getting better. And so, I mean, it's been a really awesome partnership and just so much alignment from what we want to do and like the vision we have for like how we want to change how the world grieves and treats the grieving. Like, it's just, there's so much to do here.
So much to do.
We both see it and feel it.
And do you guys, I mean, I'm assuming the answer is yes, or you wouldn't be partners, but I'm asking about like your shared vision for growth, because I feel like this could be the type of business that you are like, you know what, small, high touch. It's not necessarily about growth. So what is y'all's vision for the future? Like, what's your ultimate,
Yeah, no, we want to be a huge company. Not just like, we're fully bootstrapped right now. So it's not like, raise a bunch of money and sprint really fast because our investors told us to, but it's like, we see how meaningful it is, like what we're doing and the impact that we have on people. And by the end of them engaging with us, like they literally tell us that we've changed their relationship to their grief. And that's just like the coolest thing. And I just want to be able to do that for so many people and serve, as many people as I can. And just, there's just so much to do. And so, yeah, we absolutely like, while a core tenet of who we are is keeping it personal and honoring the legacy of the person that we're doing this for, like they're never, ever going to become a number or a product in our system. Like we will know, like everybody will be called by name, like all of that. It's equally met with like a serious emphasis on systemization and, like building kind of efficiencies into the business. Like one of our first hires is somebody who's literally just focused on our tech stack and integrating things and automating a bunch of stuff. And we're like a 7-person team. So
wow.
Yeah.
What are your obstacles to growth? Like what's your current challenges right now?
So I mean, one that we've almost fully finished, addressing, but I think in this space there's a challenge of supply. So these are massively specialized machines, and there's it's just a very hard space to get into. So everybody has capacity constraints. And so we've been fortunate enough to start working with like a really, really phenomenal scientific partner. And so, we're pathing towards not having the capacity problems that a lot of our competitors are experiencing right now. So that's been a really great one. And then it's just awareness. Like we really are, so few people know that you can even do something like this. And so, it's totally one of those, like, it's less of an obstacle, more of an opportunity. And we're really excited about it because that's the fun stuff. It's just,
It's such an entrepreneur thing to say. I love it. You're like, obstacle? What's that? Like I had someone on an interview that I was doing for someone else ask me the other day, like, what people have held you back? And I'm like, people don't hold you back. Like, what do you mean?
Right.
Like, the only person that can hold me back is me.
Totally. Exactly. It's so true.
But I was like, oh my God, this is such an entrepreneur. We're like, we don't see walls. We see we're just going to scale whatever we see.
It's so true. Absolutely. It's all like life, as Tony Robbins says, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So it's go time.
That's right. So a lot of people listening, this whole series is around starting.
Yeah.
And we are talking about, I've been on the road for my book tour, and I know as entrepreneurs, you and I are natural. There are personalities that are a little more bent towards having that bias towards action. And I do meet a lot of people though, that are afraid, that are letting their perfectionism, like that they have to be able to understand if they're going to be 100% successful before they start, or they think that they need to go get that MBA before they start. So what do you say to the people in I mean, gosh, you're 27.
Mhm.
So other people that are like, man, I want to be able to go do it. They have a business idea. What advice do you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I like, don't get me wrong. Like I mentioned, I massively struggled with perfectionism. Like that was a really difficult period of my life where I had to lower my standards so that I could just like operate. And so
Mm.
I think,
And do you think that's what ultimately is one of the things that helped you
oh
cope with
yeah,
your anxiety is realizing that you had perfectionistic thinking?
100%, absolutely. Like one of the most helpful questions I could ask myself is this good enough? Like, is it like, can it be shipped? Like, what is this good? Great, let's ship it. Not like, is it perfect?
Mm.
And that was a really helpful focus. But I think there was another big epiphany I had, which is I think we're if we're not conscious of it, we're driven by kind of a core set of basic needs, and I think you're even there's kind of certainty, uncertainty, significance, or loving connection, and one of those is your primary driver, and then there's more spiritual level needs, which are contribution and growth. And I think if you're not conscious of it, you let one of those lower level needs drive you. But if you become conscious of it, then you'll tap into so much more fulfillment and satisfaction and purpose when you're letting the higher level ones drive you. And so for me, it was like, let go perfectionism is significance, like needing to feel like you did a good enough job, or that you kind of got the A plus, like, or whatever, and let go of significance and just focus instead on growth and contribution. So it's like, if you decide, what, this work, like, yeah, it might take me a while to build this business, and I won't be making as much money as if I were like a lawyer and on a lawyer's path, but I'm giving back to people, and that just feels good. Like that is amazing. Every single night going to bed and knowing that I'm doing that, and I'm also personally growing in so many ways, and so it just like really lets go of the pressure a lot. And then like success comes with that when you're not really focused on being successful. It's let yourself just feel the fulfillment of giving back and growing as a person, and then it's kind of crazy how much you actually do progress when you do it.
Mm. I love that. That's such great practical advice for our listeners. Tell me this, because I struggled a little bit, and now I don't. But even in our group, most of the companies in our group are VC backed, and I feel like the challenges with a VC backed company is so different than a
Mhm.
bootstrapped company. And of course, sometimes I get a little bit like, oh, I just wish I had money to just throw at marketing right now,
Yeah.
But we are very deliberate in how we
Hmm.
are spending because we are
Hmm.
bootstrapped, and which in some ways is like so
Hmm.
extremely empowering because we have all 100% decision making
Totally.
in the company. Are you planning on raising? And if not, like, do you ever grapple with kind of that like, I don't know, feeling like, "Ah, I want the sexiness of the VC backed company."
So the only I think concern I have, or thing that I think about is how could we like really outpace anybody that potentially comes into our space at any point and just have a massive head start on them. And so that would be one allure of raising money. But I just have such a huge respect for bootstrapped companies. I just think it's such a I don't know, like I just think you earn a certain like kind of stripes by being a bootstrapper. You're
Mm,
making just really thoughtful business decisions. You're really in tune with the economic drivers of your business. You're just so much more like attentive to
mm,
creating really real value. So I think that you're kind of a pretty badass entrepreneur, which is funny because I think that externally the impressions are the opposite. Like I was reading with the ink, like all of the girls that were on the 30 under 30, somebody commented, they're like, wow, how sad. Like, look at the gap between how much money the women have raised versus the men. Like, shows the bias in our fundraising environment. And I'm like, maybe they're just smarter and they decided not to give away a bunch of their company early on.
right.
Like,
Yeah, it's really interesting in this entrepreneurial space. I feel like the conversation is so different than from like when my dad was
mhm.
an entrepreneur. I feel like now it's more about like how much money are you raising instead of like how
Right,
profitable your
totally.
company is, and how much percentage you own and like what decisions you're able to make. It's
So true.
it's I don't know, it's been something that I've grappled a little
Mm-hmm.
bit with. And ultimately, this is my only company that I've ever done. So I've never done it any other way. And so sometimes it's easy, though, to look and go, gosh, I just want a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of cash to just throw at that
Yeah, I
thing,
feel that for sure. Definitely.
Sure. Oh my goodness. Well, okay, so this is the Going Scared podcast, and I really I define courage as being scared but going anyway and not letting our fears hold us back. So I like to ask people, how are you going scared right now in your
Oh
life?
man. Well, there's just being a first time entrepreneur, you feel like you're doing it all the time. We did have it a lot this year. Like we at one point thought our whole supply chain was going to go away, so that was like something we had to go solve. I mean,
Now, as
massive.
someone who deals with anxiety, like, I mean, it feels like you are, like, wrestling it to the ground. It's like I also say, like, if you're afraid, like, do the antidote to fear is doing
Totally.
that thing that you think you're afraid, and then you kinda keep doing that, and you're realizing, like, I'm so much more
Hmm.
courageous than I ever could have
Yeah.
imagined. So, yeah, how as someone who struggles with anxiety, and then you're in these situations that are super uncertain at this phase in the business, especially as a startup.
I mean, I think my anxiety typically is more like about, am I doing good enough? Am I like, contributing enough?
Mhm.
When something crazy like that happens, it's just like I don't even get stressed out. It's like, okay, well, we just need to solve this. I think it also really, really, really helps having a partner, and when you have somebody that is just like in it with you, and it's like, okay, we're in this, dude. Like, let's go
Mhm.
fix this. It's just such a comfort, knowing that there's somebody else that's like got your back, and like you are going to figure this out together. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's a big piece of it. And another thing is like, again, I'm just a really growth oriented person. Like that's like one of my biggest motivators is if I can help myself see how I'm going to grow from a situation, then it makes it a lot easier for me to go do it. And so I always tell myself that it's like your growth always lies outside your comfort zone. So if I feel really uncomfortable, then I'm like, oh, look, it must mean I'm growing. I like picture myself literally getting stretched to where I'm like, oh, this is literally me being physically stretched so that I can grow more. So
Do you have some rituals in your life where you kind of stop and reflect to understand, like, what you did learn from something?
So, I mean, personally, I do have kind of a morning ritual where, like, I do, meditation, focus on gratitude, visualization of things I'm trying to accomplish, and then I like Garrett and I have a really good, couple days a week where we'll get coffee to check in with each other, and like he highlights a lot of blind spots for me, and it's really helpful to have somebody else tell you that. And then as I go throughout the days, I kind of like will journal sometimes and just be like, oh, okay, that's where that thing came up. Like now I'm aware of it. So yeah.
That takes so much trust and vulnerability and bravery to
Yeah,
have a relationship like that, but man, when you
totally.
do,
Absolutely.
that is
Absolutely.
growth
Like,
ultimately.
you need to show the other person that you're giving them feedback because you care about them and you want them to be better. And then it's such a powerful source of learning about yourself because there's only so much you can identify on your own, I think.
I interviewed Allie Webb, the founder of Dry Bar.
Hmm. Oh, cool.
And yeah, and her company is huge, huge. And I was kind of asking her, how do I go about defining my kind of my founder role now that the business is, we're really in that scaling mode. And she's like, you just need to sit down and ask a couple of key people, like, where do I add value to the business and where do I take away
Totally.
value, And so I did that this week with a couple people, and man, it's already been so extremely helpful. So I think that's just another practical tip for our listeners, even if you aren't, starting a business or running a business. I mean, the whole point of this series is really about starting. So
Hmm.
that can be like starting a new workout routine or starting to be healthy or starting a, nonprofit or whatever it might be. I think it's such a healthy process when we can really sit down and be ready
Hmm.
to receive feedback of, not just our strengths, but also where those areas where we could grow,
Hmm.
or the areas where we're just like, you know what, you're just not good at that. And that's okay. So like, don't even try.
Hmm. But I love what you said about like having people actually do tell you where your strengths are because I think we're really quick to be like, here's where I'm falling short. But That's just, it's especially when you're doing something really hard like entrepreneurship, like just a pat on the back throughout the week, like really being conscious of like complimenting somebody when they do a really good job. Like it just feels so good. You're like, wow, like yes, I worked really hard on it and somebody noticed. And so, yeah, I just think that's just as important, because a lot of the time we actually forget to focus on that part.
Whenever I hear about a mentor or, whatever you want to call it, sometimes I feel like mentorship sounds so formal. And I think that oftentimes we can pour into others without even calling it a mentorship. But man, this story of how that mentor really changed her life and has now been the catalyst behind her entire company really inspired me and got me to thinking about how I can really call forth other people, especially as I'm dreaming about 2019 right now. You can keep up with Adelle on Twitter and on Instagram at Adelle Archer. And before we go, speaking of Instagram, if you don't follow me over there, go give me a follow. It's just Jessica Honegger, 1 N, 2 Gs. I often do giveaways and contests over there with our guests, so you can often find out a little bit more behind the scenes. And also, it's a great place to engage about the podcast. I love hearing about what you're learning, what you want to learn. Go give me a DM. Go just give me a follow over there. We even have an Instagram account for the Going Scared podcast, so you can stay up to date, and that is just at the Going Scared podcast. Our wonderful music for today's show is by my good friend Ellie Holcomb. Going Scared is produced by Eddie Kolpoltz, and I'm Jessica Honegger. Until next time, let's take each other by the hand and keep going scared.